Katie tell about her organization called Ravens Care, based out of Defiance, and she's getting a hell of a presence here in Hicksville all the time. Katie?
Thank you for having me. My name is Katie Ketterheinrich. I'm the director of Ravens Care in Defiance County. And I have always known a giving, compassion, and charity in my life. My dad was a Rotarian as long as I can remember. And back in the day, they wouldn't let women into the Rotary, so they had Rotary Anns, and my mom was a Rotary Ann. And my parents dragged me all over the place. I rang Salvation Army bells. They did a project where they built an ice arena, an indoor ice arena. I got dragged to that. I got dragged to taking food baskets to homes. I did it all. So I was kind of like a little child Rotarian. One of the cool things that I wanted to tell you while you were doing this is at Christmas time, they made the most money by doing what this gentleman was doing. We would go with our fathers. They would bring kids, and they had a Christmas program, and they had Santa Claus, and he played the ukulele. But the kids were allowed to tattle on their fathers. So they made quite a bit of money doing that. So in the future, if you want to do something fun like that, it is a lot of fun, and it's good for the kids to see what actually happens at Rotary and how to live a giving life. So just to seed the plant here. Anyway, I've worked for Ravens Care for many years, since 1997. It was started, who knows what Ravens Care actually is? Not just the name, but what we actually do. Doug, come on, seriously. Wow, I sit on many boards with him, I'm really upset. So Ravens Care was started in 1993 by 3 area pastors in Defiance, and what happens was people would go from church to church to church trying to get assistance with an electric bill or something that the government agencies couldn't help them with. So pastors are so busy that didn't have time to talk to these people and do all the work that they have to figure out what was going on. So the 3 pastors got together and they said, hey, if we get 10 churches, we put $1,000 in each, we'll have a nice little kitty. We'll get a clearinghouse going. One person can do the work, and we'll just all send our people there. And so that's how Ravens Care started. It's after 1 Kings, when Elijah was in the desert, and God sent the ravens to give Elijah sustenance. Our mission is to provide emergency assistance to people in a caring, loving, and Christian manner. If you think of a train, at the end of the train is a caboose. We are kind of the caboose of the agency trains. So you have Job and Family Services and Community Action and all these government agencies. And then when they can't help, we try to step in to either direct somebody where they need to go or try to help them as best we can. We also help with food, clothing, medicine. We're the only ones in Defiance County that help with psychotropic medicines. If you're not taking your depression medicine, you can't work, and if you can't work, you're going to get kicked out of your house, or you're going to lose your house, you're going to lose your car, and everything else. So we feel it's important to help people over that hump. We don't give them money every month for that. What we do is we give them the money to get their medicine. Then we also help them find ways to get it in the future so that they don't have that problem again. We help with medical supplies that aren't paid through insurance or anything like that. We help with gasoline. If you get a job and you don't have the money for gas, you can't go to that job. So we try and support you for the first 2 weeks until you do get a paycheck. And then we also talk about putting money aside for your house payment, putting money aside for your gas. Those things are necessary. It doesn't matter if you have a job, if you don't have a house or a roof over your head. So we talk about priorities once they start getting that paycheck, because it's often, you know, I have a dime, everybody has a dime, and they start spending it. So we also help with medical trips. We send a lot of people to Columbus for medical treatments, Ann Arbor, Toledo, that type of thing. We help with utility shutoffs, electric gas, excuse me, I'm getting over that thing everybody has. The electric, gas, and water. Mostly water. We spent $17,000 last year with water bills. So that's a lot of water bills. Usually Community Action can help with the electric and gas, but it's a very short from November until April, and after that, people just don't have anywhere to go except for us. So we also help with clothing. If you get a job and you need steel-toed boots, and that's going to keep you out of the factory, we'll get you the steel-toed boots. We'll get you the non-slip shoes. We'll get you the clothes you need. Anything to get you over that hump, to get you on your way. We do personal care supplies. We don't expect you to go to look for a job if you're dirty, if your hair is greasy, if your teeth aren't brushed. We talk about hygiene and how to do that. We also have home health care supplies like the Comet and the Dawn, and to keep your house clean and sanitary for your children. We help with birth certificates and photo IDs because those are necessary to get a job. A lot of times they go to temp services and they don't have those things, and so they'll come to us and we will write a check to the group that supplies that, and so they can get their job and get on their way. We also do crock-pot classes. We help with Christmas for kids. We do just an enormous amount of things. To fund all this, we write grants through FEMA. They help us with shelter. We write personal grants, and those are usually through like Kohl's or Marshall's or something like that, and they help us with general needs that we have in the community. It's your dollars that make a difference in the community, and I've always said that this is a community ministry. This is not my ministry. I am the vessel that it goes through, but this is not my ministry. This is the community. So whatever the community puts into it is what comes out of it. And last year we touched over 2,051 lives in Defiance County. We spent $17,000 on 300 families with utility problems. We helped 36 families with 149 medications and spent $5,000 for that. And we put 86 families in emergency shelter and spent $16,000 in emergency shelter alone, which is a lot. An emergency shelter is the sheriff's department, the police department. Somebody will call me and say, John is living on the street, it's 30 degrees outside and he's freezing, what can we do? And so we put them in temporary housing or the hotel for a couple days to give them time to rest and get their wits about them and start calling people that they know to either go there or get them out of that situation, maybe into the PASS center, maybe into another county, into a homeless shelter, just something. But when you're cold and you're hungry and you're tired, you can't think straight, and so that allows them time. And it's also part of the requirements to get into several of the community action programs. And so they'll say, are you homeless? And they'll say, yes, Ravens Care put us up. And they said, okay, that's one of the qualifications, we're good to go, and they'll go from there. So that's one of the things. And we work together very closely with the different agencies to try and do the best we can for the community. And I am not a good speaker. I am more like the bones of the thing. So we also have some new programs. One is the homelessness prevention. We have found that if you get kicked out of your house, it's going to cost you a last month's rent, a first month's rent, a deposit on the water, deposit on the electric, and deposit on the gas. If you can't pay your rent and you get evicted, where are you going to come up with that kind of money? So we said, okay, if we can prevent them from getting evicted for 1 month, and they had an income, like in November, December they couldn't pay their bill, but we knew that in January they were going to start their income again, then we can save a lot of money just by helping them that way. And so United Way joined forces with us, and they pay 50%, we pay 50%. And that's one of the ways that United Way supports us, is with that program. We've had many, many successes with it. One story, for example, is a gentleman who was a twin, and their Social Security numbers were one off. And somebody fat-fingered, the one brother died, and somebody fat-fingered the number, and his Social Security stopped. And so they had to get that straightened out. He could show me the paperwork before, the paperwork after, and so we paid his rent for that month and got him through that, and saved him from being on the street and the whole 9 yards for that. So that's a good program that we're doing. We're having, like I said, we're having a lot of success with it. We do have some failures with it, and people that slide through, and they're made to come back and show us where they've paid we try to hold them responsible as much as we can. Come back and show me where you're paid up, and we'll go on from there. But they also know that if they do not show up, and that's part of the agreement when they get this loan, that they can never come back to Ravens again, because we're in good faith helping them, and we expect them to do the same for us. It sounds a little harsh probably, but we have to hold them accountable. It's quite a bit of money for us to give out. Another thing we found was people were calling us from Hicksville needing gas to go to Fort Wayne or Indianapolis for medical, and they were willing to drive to Defiance and get the gas because we only do vouchers at the Marathon station in Defiance, and then drive to Fort Wayne, which made no sense to me whatsoever. So I called the community hospital and I talked to one of their social workers and I said, hey, why don't we get you some gas cards, and you can use them at your discretion, and I can call and say, John Smith is coming for a gas card at 3 o'clock today, he's going to Fort Wayne, and then that way it kind of cuts out the middleman. I'm going to interview him over the phone, I'm going to make sure it's legit, I'm going to call the doctor and make sure that everything's good, and we'll go from there. And they're like, great. So I gave some to the police station, they have them in the safe, there's some at the hospital, so if there's an emergency and John has a heart attack and his wife's trying to get to the Fort Wayne and she doesn't have the gas money, they can hand her a gas card to go. Somebody's going for treatment and they let the doctor or nurse know that they do not have the funds to go for treatment. We surely don't want them to miss treatment. I'm a cancer survivor and I know that those treatments are vital on the day that you're supposed to be there. So I definitely want to make sure that people get to where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be like that. So, and we are also, as Steve said, partnering in Hicksville through Susan, was generous enough to get us the community center. We have a presence here once a month. I'm trying for twice a month now. I think that we need to be here twice a month. And what we're trying to do is prevent people from having to find rides to get to Defiance, to get what they need, to come back here. It is a long way, and gas for us is not too difficult, but for them it's really difficult, and especially when they don't have a car, they have to find somebody to take them, and then they have to pay that person, and it's just, it gets really ugly sometimes. So we're trying to help the community people out the best we can. And so we have a presence the first Wednesday of the month in the afternoon we're here, and we're going to try for the third Wednesday of the month. It's really hard to get out to the people who need to hear it. So if any of you have any ideas on how I can do that, I would really appreciate it. Some don't get the papers. I've done advertising on Facebook. I don't know if you have a current events of Hicksville, like we have current events of Defiance, I can put it on there. Anything you can suggest, I would really be open to. So one of the things, the way I met Steve was, we do a crockpot class, and we've been having so much fun. I'm going to give you a number, 4. Remember that number, okay? Because I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to ask you what the number is again. So these people come through the food bank, and they started coming to the crockpot class, and they're really enjoyable, and they learn nutrition, and they learn how to cook with a crockpot class, or crockpot. And we talk about different things going on in their lives, and how maybe we can stretch their SNAP cards. Especially older people have very few SNAP card, or what we know as food stamps. They might get like $16 in food stamps, which isn't a whole lot. And so we talk about what we can do to stretch their budget out a little bit better. And the nutritionist comes in, and their eyes just, they sit there like a deer in the headlights, because she tells them, if you look at the back of a nutrition pack, 4, you divide the number of sugars by 4, and that's how many teaspoons of sugar you have in your drink or your food. And you can also do that with fat. And you can, so if you're watching your sugar or you're watching your fat, if you look on the back label, divide it by 4, and that's per serving. And most of them are sitting there with Mountain Dews. And then she starts coming out with sugar. And then, do you know there's 24 teaspoons of sugar in a small Mountain Dew? So that's just amazing. And they're just like, you know, and pretty soon you see them coming in with maybe water instead of a Mountain Dew. And they say, well, maybe I need to change that. So we're trying to change lives. We're not trying to make them better. We're not trying to change them and the way they think and what they're doing, but we try to plant little seeds. And we plant little seeds through prayer. We pray with people. We talk to people about Christ. Because we're not federally funded, we can do that. We check up on people who come in and are really destitute. We will make sure that somebody in the emergency realm knows it, and they check up on them. So we're kind of like the caboose. We're trying to pick up everything and catch everything as we go through, and do what we can in the community to make it better. So Ravens Care is willing to go that extra mile for people, and we want them to stand on their own feet. We don't want to hold them up. We don't want to be a source of their income. As you can imagine, this is really hard to do on our own. I'm the only paid person. Everybody else is volunteer. I have 2 other volunteers. So everything that Ravens Care does is just the 3 of us right now. So we raise funds through United Way, the Women's Giving Circle, which is in Defiance. I think they have some people out of Hicksville, don't they? Okay. And then we also receive funds for Christmas for Kids. We receive funds through churches. We receive funds through private donations. And so that's how we are funded to be able to do what we do in the community. Our administrative cost is less than 10%. We try and keep it under 10% if we can. Sometimes when we have to buy a new computer or something like that, it goes up a little bit, but not much. So your dollars, as I said before, do make a difference in the community. We see the old, the young, the sick, the not sick, the rich, the poor. So many circumstances can just throw your life in a tizzy. Cancer is ugly. It can absolutely drain funds and just make life miserable for you, and so that's where we try and step in. And so when people's backs are against the wall and they're in what we call a drought, we try to be their hope. So that's what we do. Are there any questions that I can answer? Maybe?
Do you have any kind of statistics on how many homeless people there are within Defiance County?
We participate in a homeless count through Community Action, and they have those statistics. And what they do is they count for 1 day out of a year. And I think they came up with, and homelessness means you're couch surfing. Do you know what that is? It means you're going from house to house to house. That means living under a bridge. That means living in your car. Anything that you don't reside in your own place. And I think they came up with 82 that day in Defiance County. So I don't know whether it's families or whether it's individuals, but it was 82 people in Defiance County on 1 day that were homeless. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're that homeless person, it's a lot. I think Doug would agree that they find them here, there, and everywhere, abandoned houses, and these people that do the count actually go into abandoned buildings and stuff like that looking for the homelessness, because what happens is when they report and the number goes up, then they receive, each county receives more money to help with that situation. So, yeah, it's a lot. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Just for me, working with Katie and Ravens Care, it's an organization that's really on the ground, that really talks with people and really does some real help. I'll call Ravens Care and say, I got such and such person looking for $150 for their water bill. And Katie will look up her, or punch that person up and say, no, we just paid her bill last month. You might want to rethink that. So the accountability is there. When there's communication between her and I, she really helps me tremendously making good decisions.